This video will go over how to plot data in Map Business Online through our Plot Data button, which will be found at the top. And this would be how you'd bring in something like an Excel spreadsheet. So the first thing we'll do is click on the Plot Data on Map button in the top left. And then we're presented with our Plot Data wizard. This first view that you see will just give you an idea of how spreadsheets should look. So you can have a company name, address, city, state, zip, sales figures. You can have as many columns as you want. Feel free to throw in any data that you think might be useful for you down the road. You really want to make sure that you have the proper headers at the top of your Excel spreadsheet so that the program can identify which columns are which. If you need, you can always look at our help topics down below. I will click Next, and then I'm going to import an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go from File, and I'll click Browse, and I'm just going to go where my spreadsheet is located, and I'll click Next. You'll notice that there's a Plot button immediately to the right of the word Next, and that's if you are completely comfortable with your data. You know that you have proper headers, you know that the data looks great in Excel, and this will just kind of jump right through if you click the Plot button, and it'll just automatically start to geolocate those points for you. As you become more and more comfortable with Map Business Online and you know your data looks good, maybe you'll just jump right to that Plot button. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and click Next, and we'll go down the path of Advanced. As we're bringing in data, we'll be presented with this next screen. And if you have the proper headers of your spreadsheet, then the program is able to identify what your address column is and what your city column is, and so on. If you had headers that weren't completely obvious, so if you had city, or if you didn't have city, but you had maybe billing city, and then you had another column that said shipping city, you would want to help out the program to know which column of the spreadsheet you'd like to locate these points by. So you can just choose from the column of the spreadsheet which column you'd like to plot by. So that comes up a lot when we have columns for a billing address versus a shipping address. Otherwise, you can go ahead and click Next, and the program will let you know how your addresses will be plotted by. At the very minimum, you want to have at least a zip code just so it can, at the very minimum, just plot a point right in the middle of the zip code. This next page that comes up will allow you to identify your ID column. ID is at the top, and in my fake spreadsheet, this little window down below is an example of my Excel spreadsheet. I have a unique ID column. That's not required in order to plot, but it's handy if you have a customer number or you want to give an ID number next to each entry in your spreadsheet. This ID number can be used down the line if you wanted to use a button in the program called Update Dataset. And with that Update Dataset process, if you've previously identified that unique ID column, you could later go to your Excel spreadsheet, add or remove changes to that Excel spreadsheet, come back to the program, click a button that says Update Dataset, and it'll refer back to that Excel spreadsheet, see what's been changed, and then update the dataset in the program. So that's an advanced tool. It's very useful, especially once you get comfortable with the program. If you don't have it initially, then don't worry about it. These lower informations are what appears when you click on a point. So they're called callouts, and the callout is just a text bubble. So once we've plotted our points and you see these dots all over the map, you can click on a point and expand it into what we call a callout, which is a text bubble. You can initially tell it which columns of the spreadsheet that you'd like to have in your callout. You could have sales, you could have what type of customer if you've had that information in your spreadsheet. We can always change these callouts later, so don't feel obligated to fill these out right now. We'll continue with Advanced. Sometimes we are given spreadsheets and they have an overwhelming number of columns, and so this next page that we're looking at will allow us to decide which columns of our spreadsheet that we want to import. We can choose all, or we could just do by name, location, ID, and callout columns. That's very handy if you're given an overwhelming spreadsheet, but if your spreadsheet looks great and has all the columns you need, you can just choose to do all, and we'll click Plot. Once we're done, we'll be presented with dots on the map, and we have this data window that appears down below. The data window is just all of the information from our spreadsheet that we just brought in. And from here, we can filter information. We could also change the size, color, and shape of those points. Once we do filter, we do have the ability to export with this button at the end as well if you need to export it back out to a CSV. You'll notice that we have this ability to, it's going to ask us if we want to color code the map. We could say yes or no. I typically say no because I'm going to go into the buttons later about how to color code the map. If I chose yes, then I'd be presented with this box and it'll ask me if I want to color code by symbols. If I want to differentiate them by a column of the spreadsheet, I could do color code with circles, which means that the circles would be larger or smaller based on the numeric value, like a sales column. We could have charts. This is handy if you want to show your market share between you and two other companies. You could show pie charts or bar graphs. And then we could also show a heat map if you wanted to show the essentially where your points are located. And that looks nice for a PDF. I'm going to close out of this now as we'll be going over those later. So now that we're looking at our data window, once again, we can see all the information from our spreadsheet, and we can choose to change the size, and we can change the color, and we can change the shape of all of our points. If you don't like the points, the symbols that we have, you can click on Manage Custom Symbols at the top and bring in your own custom JPEG. This is handy if you have something like a company logo. Once again, if you need to export information, you click on this button at the end. If you ever need to get back to this data window, we will click on this box at the top that looks like a calendar, and that'll pull that information back up. If you've imported multiple spreadsheets and we want to toggle between the two of them, you can click that pull down arrow, and then you can click on the spreadsheet that you're looking for. The callout information that we identified earlier can be found when you just click on a point and then expand it out, and then you can see the information that we identified earlier. If you ever need to change those callouts down the road, we can go over to our map and data box, highlight this little settings gear next to our point list that we brought in, and this opens up a larger box called Manage Map and Data. From here, we can choose to change all of the symbols as a unit all at once. We could also go to our callouts. If I click on callouts, this is once again the text bubble for my little dots on the map, and I can click on Format Callouts. I could put up to 5 fields that pop up when I click on one of those points, and if I wanted to add additional fields, I could click on number 3 in this case, and then just choose which column of the spreadsheet that I'd like to identify in that little text bubble. If you'd like to have all of the callouts appear on the map at once, you'll also see an Open Callouts button at the bottom. Now this will get a little bit overwhelming sometimes if you have a ton of point data. And so you'll just see all this information at once. It's handy if those points are spread out. We also do have a button here that says Close All Callouts if needed. And we also have a checkbox that says Use Compact Callouts. Compact callouts are if you just essentially want a small amount of information to appear. That's handy if you just have like a couple fields that you'd like to show off on your map. If at any point you want to change the direction of the callouts, we can highlight one of these tags. You'll see a little settings gear. We can click on that little tiny settings gear, change the orientation of a callout. You could, if you wanted to, if you had them all open, you could also go back to your Manage Map and Data box and click Change. If at any point you want to change information about a particular point, we can then click on one of these dots on the map, and you'll see a settings gear located here. If we click on that settings gear, that pulls up information that's unique about that particular point. Since I had sales column, I could change the information and click Save Data Edits. I can change any of the information that pertains to this individual point. I could also change information about points by going up into the data window, the thing that looks like a calendar at the top. And I can just choose to click on this little pencil here, and I can edit information about that point. I can edit the address and location, or I can edit the properties and data. It'll get me to the same location. If I have points on the map and I no longer want to see this data set, I can go over to my map and data box that hangs out on the left-hand side and just uncheck this box. This is handy if you've brought in multiple data sets and you just want to toggle between the two. You can just check and uncheck that box. This map and data box is very handy to the use of Map Business Online, as it contains the ability to toggle on and off different layers. And if you ever lose sight of your map and data box, just look to the left-hand side, and we'll see a little arrow, and we make that swing back out to the right. If you have any questions, please go to mapbusinessonline.com. Feel free to give us a call or drop us an email, and otherwise have a great day.